Okay, Enzo? Okay. And now we are glad to welcome the special guest for our show tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to introduce to you Matt Maiocco, beat reporter for NBC Sport Bay area, three-time Pro Football Writers of America award winner for game stories and features, author of 4 books about the San Francisco 49ers, including Letters to 87, Fans Remember the Legacy of Dwight Clark. Hello, Matt. Welcome to the Red and Gold podcast, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. This is a tremendous honor to be on with you guys.
Thank you.
Well, Matt, for us, it's a dream come true. So now let's start talking. First of all, is this the first time you take part in a foreign broadcast about the Niners?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I know that there's a tremendous international interest in American football and the 49ers. I think a lot of people in Europe got to know the 49ers through the 1980s when they were one of the dominant teams, or the dominant team in the National Football League. And so I think that's how a lot of people kind of felt their roots or began to get interested in the 49ers. So this is a great honor to be on with you guys. And I know, a couple times the 49ers have gone over and played regular season games in London. And you see, a tremendous, kind of gathering spot for fans of the National Football League and from the 49ers in particular, people coming from all over Europe to watch the 49ers play. So, I know that there is a great international interest in the 49ers. So I'm certainly happy to be on with you fellas.
Yes, exactly, Matt. I was attending the game with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it was 2012, the year of Colin Kaepernick, the year of the Super Bowl lost with the Ravens. And it was an incredible atmosphere in the stadium in Wembley that night. Talking to the Super Bowl, do you agree with me that the 3rd and 15 with 9 minutes to play was the key play of the game, the completion to Tyreek Hill?
I agree with you. Yes, I think that I know that the Chiefs coach, Andy Reid, said that if they had failed on 3rd and 15, they were going to go for it on 4th and 15. So they might have had another opportunity there. But as that play unfolded, I really felt that this was going to be the game, that if the Chiefs did not convert that first down, the game was over, that the 49ers would win. And not necessarily the other way, where if the Chiefs converted it, they would certainly win the game. But I did feel that that was the opportunity that the 49ers had. And I mean, it's a part of that game where the 49ers defense had been so good for so long, all season long. And so they really had the advantage going into that particular play of, kind of having Kansas City's backs up against the wall. And there's so many things that happen on that play, including DeForest Buckner coming so close to getting Patrick Mahomes, sacking him before he was able to get rid of the ball. The other thing is Nick Bosa was being held by Mitchell Schwartz, the left tackle for the Chiefs. So, there's so many things that happen on that play. Ultimately, the Chiefs made the play they had to make. It was a great play call, something that they had shown earlier. They kind of took advantage of some inexperience from the 49ers cornerback on that side, Emmanuel Mosley. But yeah, I would agree with you that really, when you look back at the Super Bowl, that was the one play that really stands out.
Matt, how do you rate the coaching staff game management in the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl?
Well, it's I guess football is one of those sports where when things work, it's automatically a good coaching decision. And when things don't work, it's not, because that's how we know how they turned out. I didn't have any issue with the play calling. If you're referring to some of the, the pass plays where the 49ers were running the ball so successfully. I mean, I went back and looked at it, and there might've been like 2 plays in the fourth quarter where it was kind of 50-50. They could have run it, they could have passed it, and 2 plays where they threw the ball. So when you look at those 2 plays, there were pass plays that were open. There were receivers open, and something happened, whether it was Chris Jones, the defensive tackle for the Chiefs, getting his hand up, batting the ball down at the line of scrimmage. But there were opportunities for the 49ers to really close the door with those pass plays. But it didn't work out. So, there's really only one way to look at it after the fact, is that, if you know how it's going to turn out, you would do something differently. And that's probably certainly one of those instances where Kyle Shanahan's a very smart coach, very wise when it comes to offensive football. And he felt like what they were doing up to that point opened up the possibility for some big plays to kind of finish the game off with the passing game. So I can totally understand why there would be second guessing. I also see Kyle Shanahan's point where, if the passes weren't batted down at the line of scrimmage, if this hadn't happened or that hadn't happened, those were big plays waiting to happen. So they chalk it up to experience, and we'll see if the 49ers are able to bounce back from that bitter disappointment in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. And if there is football this season, we'll see if they're able to get back there and close the door and make sure that they come out of that with a victory.
Let's talk, Matt, about last April's draft. Do you think that Kinlaw was the first target from the beginning of the draft? He was the guy?
Yes, I do. They were picking number 13 overall, and I think they had a pretty good idea which players would be there and which players wouldn't be there. In other words, I think they had a really good idea who the top, say, 10 players selected were going to be. And they had a list of 3 players on their board, so that after the 12th pick, that they knew we would take 3 guys at 13. And Kinlaw was number 1 on that list. Brandon Ayuk, the wide receiver, they ended up taking at 25. He was also on that list. I don't know who the other receiver I don't know if it's a receiver. I don't know who the other player they would have taken. But I do know that when they got to 13 overall, and those 3 players were still available, they felt like they could move back, gain some draft picks later, and then also get certainly one of the players that they wanted. And when they moved back from 13 to 14, they were still able to get Kinlaw. So that worked out beautifully for them. But then also what they were able to do is use one of the picks they received in that trade back to then move up from 31 to 25 to get Ayuk. So it really worked out well for them as far as, how they had their draft board stacked, what they were looking to achieve from this draft, and then how they were able to execute it. So, Kinlaw is definitely a guy that they really wanted, especially after losing DeForest Buckner, trading him away to Indianapolis just a few weeks earlier. So by that standpoint, they were able to get the replacement for DeForest Buckner, and then also use the trade back to come back and get the wide receiver they really wanted.
You have already answered to my next question, because the next question is about Brandon Ayuk. We have the sensation the 49ers was forced to trade up due to the flow of the draft, the big run on wide receiver there was in the second part of the first round. So it was a real necessity, because Ayuk probably was the last wide receiver on their list, or is the guy they wanted from the beginning, so they really like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were, as far as I can tell, there were the two receivers they liked better than anybody. And I don't know if you recall, but like during that time, a lot of people were talking about Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs and CeeDee Lamb.
Lamb.
And yes, and so the player of those that the 49ers really liked was CeeDee Lamb. And so I think they had CeeDee Lamb rated a little bit higher than Brandon Ayuk, but not so much that they would have been pounding their table in frustration if they had the opportunity for either CeeDee Lamb or Brandon Ayuk, and they ended up settling for Ayuk. So I think it was pretty close. When CeeDee Lamb went in the draft and the 49ers thought that there'd be a few other guys taken before Ayuk, they didn't feel like the rest of the league evaluated him the way they did. But I don't know that they really felt like they had that opportunity to wait at number 31. In fact, they felt like they didn't. They felt like if they had waited at 31, that Ayuk wouldn't have been available. So they traded up 6 spots to get him. And so what you're looking at with Brandon Ayuk is a guy who can do a lot of different things. He's very much like Deebo Samuel in the sense that he can run all kinds of different routes. He has good speed. He can run the ball. He's almost like a running back with the ball in his hands. He can run those jet sweeps like Deebo Samuel does. He's also very good in the return game. And as a first-round draft pick, I don't know that you want him back there necessarily returning punts and kind of putting himself, under more risk for injury. But Brandon Ayuk is a guy that they really liked because of the versatility. He can pretty much line up anywhere across the formation. He can line up outside, he can line up in the slot, and he can run all kinds of different routes. So that's really what they fell in love with, was what he showed during his career at Arizona State University, but also showing the traits, the physical traits that Kyle Shanahan believes he can use them in a lot of different roles.
Looking on how Lynch and Shannon handle the first round, do you think that the front office had already secured the deal for Trent Williams before day 2 of the draft?
Well, they didn't finalize that trade until day 3 of the draft, right before day 3. But yeah. I know for a fact that they were talking to Washington earlier in that week, and they felt like they were going to get Trent Williams. The draft was started on a Thursday with the first round, and then rounds 2 and 3 were on the Friday, and then 4 through 7 were on the Saturday. They felt like they had by far the best offer for Trent Williams on Thursday. And they were hoping to get that deal done on Thursday, because at that point, there was still, they still had an opportunity to take an offensive tackle, an offensive lineman.
Yes, in the first round.
In the first round, yes. And they kind of rolled the dice a little bit. They took a bit of a gamble in going with Javon Kinlaw, but basically what they felt was if we could have Tristan Wirfs, the player that Tampa Bay ended up taking, or Javon Kinlaw, we still want Kinlaw. But so they took the player that they felt was the better player, also feeling somewhat confident that they'd be able to get that trade done with Trent Williams. And a lot of it is, I don't think the old Washington regime would have done that trade with Kyle Shanahan, but there are new people with Washington. They have a great deal of respect for Ron Rivera, who's the former Carolina coach, and the new general manager there, Kyle Smith. So they felt like there was trust there and that it was going to be a football decision. It wasn't going to be personalities or anything like that. But I do know that they felt pretty confident, I think, from Wednesday that they were going to get Trent Williams. But believe me, they were breathing a huge sigh of relief Saturday morning when the deal was finally done, finalized. And then, as you know, Joe Staley had already told the team he was going to retire. I had a pretty good idea that that was going to happen, but Joe Staley had remained silent all the way through, and it wasn't until the 49ers in Washington finalized that trade for Trent Williams that Staley then came out and said, okay, I'm retiring. Yeah. So he just wanted to stay, quiet and kind of under the radar until the 49ers were able to get his replacement, which is a huge credit to him to be able to do that.
They handled it perfectly, in my opinion. Lynch made a wonderful job in that operation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I do think that that they handled it the right way, and it really couldn't have gone any better than what they wanted it to. And so it takes a lot of, in some cases, it takes a little bit of luck. And so I think that they did, it was a kind of a combination of luck, good planning, and everything else for it to fall into place.
In Italy, we say that luck helps the Braves.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear that very well.
Yes, in Italy, we say that luck helps the Braves. It was a mix of luck and brilliant management, I believe.
Yeah, no, there's no question that, you plan all you want and you have a good plan of attack going in, but still, when you don't control everything and you need cooperation from another team, or you can plan all you want, but sometimes things blow up because of things you don't foresee. And this was one of those cases where everything worked out for the 49ers.
Matt, talking about Joe Staley, who do you think is going to replace him as a leader in the locker room and on the field?
Well, Trent Williams takes over at left tackle, and that's a situation where the 49ers are very fortunate because Joe Staley was a really good player. And in talking to some people around the league, they feel like Trent Williams is an even better player. So it's possible the 49ers upgraded with a better player at left tackle. I don't think that Trent Williams is like the leader type, and coming in first year with the organization, I don't know that he's going to be a kind of guy who's going to be a dominant locker room presence. But he's from everything I hear, good guy, good teammate. As far as the leadership, yeah, I think I don't think that anybody will necessarily replace him, but I do think it's maybe other people taking on more leadership. George Kittle will become more of a leader. I think Jimmy Garoppolo will become more of a leader. Guys like Kyle Juszczyk. I think Mike McGlinchey is a guy that, maybe wasn't seen so much as a leader because he was always kind of, deferred to Joe Staley. But now that he's entrenched, he was a first-round draft pick for the 49ers in 2018. Now he's been in the league a couple years, and he kind of has that presence to him to be a leader. So I think you're going to see more from a lot of different guys who now can take ownership in the 49ers and kind of pick up the slack for what they'll be missing without Joe Staley.
Matt, talking about
Gianluca,
the next.
sorry, we didn't arrange this question. I thought about a couple episodes ago. We were talking about the possibility of Joe Staley to being inducted in the Hall of Fame. If I recall correctly, you are in the board. What's your take on the possibility in the next years to come to see Joe Staley enshrined in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, no, I think he has a chance. I don't think it's a certainty that he will be in the Hall of Fame. He'll become eligible in 5 years, or after sitting out for 5 years. And there are a lot of good players who haven't made it that far. I think that Staley certainly has a lot of good things that you can look at. The fact that he was named to the NFL All-Decade team is a huge credit to him. But it's not an easy thing. And yeah, I would hope that he'll be a finalist. And we talked about when the Hall of Fame board gets together, there's 48 of us, and the top 15 every year we talk about, and we present cases and we have discussion back and forth on. And last year, Bryant Young was a finalist for the first time. And so we talked about him, and he didn't make the Hall of Fame. What's kind of surprising to me was that Patrick Willis was eligible for the Hall of Fame last year, and he did not make the final 15. So I'm sure he will in the future, but I think for Staley, it's going to be a process, and I would be surprised if he makes it the first year, but hopefully he gets into the room as far as one of the final 15 and we can talk it through. But it's a very difficult thing, and he plays a position where maybe it doesn't get maybe the recognition that a lot of positions get. There's no stat for left tackle. He didn't win any Super Bowls, made it a couple years. So, there are certain things that are looked at. The fact that Frank Gore is the number 3 all-time leading rusher now, and Joe Staley, blocked for him, probably blocked more games for Frank Gore than any other offensive lineman that Frank Gore ever played with. So that's a positive. So I think it's tough to predict whether he will make it or not, but I think he's definitely in the picture.
Yeah. Talking to the next season, Matt, do you think the negotiation with Kittle will be in some way affected by the lower revenues of next season due to the pandemic impact on the league?
I think so. Yeah, I think that when the 49ers look at how much they want to pay for some of these players, and George Kittle being the top of that list, every year since the NFL has had the salary cap, the salaries have risen and risen and risen. And 2021 will be the first year that I don't see the salaries rising. So, the 49ers have to look at their long-term budget and how much they want to pay players. From George Kittle's standpoint and his agent, they just want to see him get paid what he deserves. And, they can't look at it like, well, we're going to take less than these other tight ends because, the salary cap is going to be falling. It's a very complicated issue. And the 49ers are going to be looking at maintaining their salary structure and not, they don't want to get into a point where if they pay George Kittle $15 million a year or $16 million a year, that they have to cut other players to make that salary fit. And so I don't know what's going to happen around the league, because if the Players Association and the NFL teams don't come to some agreement on what they do with pre-existing contracts, and that salary cap drops by 30 or 40 million per team next year, something's going to have to give. They're going to have to, every team would have to cut a large portion of their roster just to fit guys on their team. So I don't think it has to impact it in some way, but exactly how it'll impact it at this point, we don't know, because those conversations haven't taken place yet between the NFL and the NFLPA.
So can we expect a blowout acquisition for the Niners in the summer, like, for example, a trade for Jamal Adams?
I don't think so. I don't see them making any big deals at this point. I think their roster is where they want it. I think they're set up for the future the way they want. I mean, I don't know what it would cost. I mean, from what I understand, the Jets aren't interested in trading Jamal Adams. Even if they were, what would they be willing or what would they want from the 49ers? Would it be 1 first-round draft pick, probably more than that. Would it be 2 first-round draft picks? And the 49ers are now at a spot where they need those young guys coming in to take, the good thing about rookies,
the salary.
The salary. Yeah. I mean, they're on a set salary for 4 years, really 5 years. So you need that constant influx of young guys making low amount of money. And then you have to make those decisions, like on George Kittle. Here's a guy coming up on last year of his contract. Are we going to give him the big bucks? Because George Kittle's been, very much underpaid for his first 3 NFL seasons. But so you always kind of need that churn. And, Jamal Adams right now, he's not making much in 2020, but next year his salary goes to $10 million a year. And then after that, if you want to keep him around, it might be $15 million a year. So that means you're going to have to make some difficult choices with other guys on your roster. So I think the 49ers, where they stack up right now as far as their roster, I just don't see them spending the draft pick capital it would take to get somebody like that, and then B, the future salary cap dollars that it would take to hold on to a player like that.
Yeah, I ask you about Jamal Adams because our secondary is always a part of the team that worries us, because it's consolidated, it's very solid, but probably individually they are not as a top team like the Niners in many opinions.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that their pass defense last year was outstanding.
It was great.
Yeah, I mean, other than the 3rd and 15 that we talked about earlier. Yeah. But when you look at the yards that they allowed per game, I mean, they were the best in the NFL last year. Not only the best last year, but the best in the NFL for the past 10 years, giving up only 160 yards passing per game. Now, I realize, and I'm you guys do too, that a lot of that has to do with the pass rush. But
yeah,
if you can get the kind of production out of the pass defense that they got last year, I don't see why you'd want to change that and invest more money there, because you were so good the way it was. And so I don't know that there's a lot of motivation to try to do something there. What they did in the offseason was they signed Jimmy Ward to a contract that pays him really good money. They like Jimmy Ward a lot. And so I just don't see them, after signing Jimmy Ward to a big contract, which I think comes out to about $9.5 million a year. I don't see why they would then go get another safety and pay him, not necessarily this year, but down the road, pay him that kind of top money either. So they don't have the big name recognition. Jimmy Ward's not a big name. Jaquaski Tart is not a big name. The other cornerback, Emmanuel Mosley, not a big name. Richard Sherman is the big name. But the 49ers certainly like what they have. And a year ago, if we had been talking about this, I think we probably all would have agreed that the defensive backfield was the weak spot of the 49ers. And John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and the whole 49ers organization decided to basically keep all the defensive backs that they already had in place. And a year later, we can look back on that and say that was the right decision.
Yes, I take your point, and I agree. I don't like Ward, but it's I don't have a role, fortunately, in the 49ers front office. The next question is
maybe someday.
Maybe. The next question is not a question. It's a game. If you could choose a single player in the entire NFL to add to the Niners roster, one on offense and one on defense, who would you pick?
Well, defense is easy. I'd pick Aaron Donald because he is just he's a destroyer, on the defensive line. Might be the best player in all of football, Aaron Donald of the LA Rams. Offensively, Who would I pick? I would probably pick a wide receiver, maybe somebody like DeAndre Hopkins. I know some people would probably say, well, why not Patrick Mahomes? That's probably a pretty good one too. I think that's who gosh, would I go with Mahomes? I might go with Mahomes. But if I don't, I really like DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's a phenomenal wide receiver. Now, of course, he's a member of the Arizona Cardinals. The 49ers will be facing him twice a year. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. Who would you pick?
I pick Quinton Nelson on offense, the guard of the Indianapolis Colts.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
On defense, Stephon Gilmore, probably. The
cornerback. Two good ones. And I think the thing about Quentin Nelson that's interesting is that the 49ers do put a lot on their offensive guards. And so a guy like him would be, that would be a pretty good pick. Yeah, I like both of your picks. I'm going to stick with my picks, but I like both of yours.
No, yes, it's just a game.
Sure.
Which will be the more interesting and closest roster battles in the next training camp for you?
Boy, well, along the lines of the offensive guards, I think Daniel Brunskill and Tom Compton and Colton McKivitz, not big names there, but three guys who will be competing at right guard. To me, that's the big one. A lot of these positions are pretty much settled. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of spots where you can look at and say this position, that there's real competition. I think at one of the linebacker spots, so you have the middle linebacker spot is Fred Warner, and then you have the weak side spot, the will linebacker, and it was Quan Alexander when the season started last year, and then when he got injured, it became Dre Greenlaw. Well, the difference between that will linebacker spot and the strong side spot, or the Sam, is that the will stays on the field every snap. And then the strong side guy goes off in nickel situations. So that's going to be an interesting competition because they're paying Quan Alexander a lot of money, and you almost need him on the field all the time for him to justify that money he's making. So that'll be interesting to see because Dre Greenlaw played really well last year when he stepped in place of Quan Alexander. I think the wide receiver spots, wide receivers are a little bit different because it's just not two wide receivers out there. If a guy runs a deep route, he comes off and another guy goes in, so there's always this kind of churn of guys, rotation. So I think that'll sort itself out. But to me, the ones to keep an eye on are those two that I just mentioned, right guard and the will linebacker spot.
Matt, now talking about wide receivers, do you think that there will be someone who's stepping up, or there will be a committee approach, spreading the ball with all of them?
Yeah, I think that it'll be by and large a committee approach. Now with Deebo Samuel injured, he broke his foot just a couple of weeks ago and had surgery. I think they need more guys. Toward the end of last season, it was Emmanuel Sanders, it was Deebo Samuel, and it was Kendrick Bourne. And those are basically the only three guys who played for them late in the season and in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. They need guys like, I don't know if Dante Pettis, he's one of these guys that he could end up being, a major part of this team, or he could be cut. Trent Taylor is a very good slot guy who hasn't been healthy. Jalen Hurd is a tall wide receiver who wasn't healthy as a rookie. Brandon Ayuk is a guy that, as much as he shows, he will basically tell the coaching staff how much he can play because if he can pick it up, I think he's going to play a lot this season. And we don't know how Deebo Samuel is going to come back. There are guys like Travis Benjamin, Kendrick Bourne, the 7th round draft pick, Jawan Jennings. So I do think that they have more depth, and injuries will play a large part in this. But to me, when you look back at guys who were on the team last year but never really got on the field due to injuries or whatever the case may be, it's Dante Pettis, it's Trent Taylor, and it's Jalen Hurd, three guys who have an opportunity to step up and be contributors this season.
Do you think, Matt, that the Niners lack a physical wide receiver on the outside, one who can make the tough catch in the red zone? Kittle is enough for this role?
Yeah, I think that, as far as the wide receivers go, that's the point. Like George Kittle is the team's number one receiver from the tight end position. But we're just talking about the wide receiver spot. I think they feel like Jalen Hurd can be that guy. Certainly Deebo Samuel can be that guy. Brandon Ayuk is a guy who has very long arms. He can catch balls away from his body. So they do need to develop a guy who can be kind of a red zone target. The guy who really played well last year, it seemed like every catch he made was either a big third down catch or a touchdown. And that's Kendrick Bourne. And I know I've talked to him this offseason. He's working very hard. He's ready to take his game to another level. So I think the 49ers do have some guys. But, when I mention all those names, these are all unproven guys. These are guys that, they haven't done it on a consistent basis in the NFL. So to say that guy is on the roster is a projection because we haven't seen them do it. The closest, I guess, of all the guys coming back really is Deebo Samuel. Kendrick Bourne a little bit, but they need somebody. They need more than one guy to kind of play up to the potential of what they think he can be. So they feel like they have the right guys. Now those right guys have to show that they're the right guys.
Yeah.
With the first full season as an NFL starter under his belt, do you think that Jimmy Garoppolo has still room for improvement?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think he played pretty well last year by and large, but he did make too many mistakes, too many interceptions. And I look back at, Kyle Shanahan with quarterbacks. Kyle Shanahan is really good with quarterbacks, and it usually takes the second year with Kyle Shanahan and the same quarterback for you to see how good this guy can be. His first year with Matt Ryan with the Falcons, those two kind of battled back and forth. And I don't know that either one of them really liked each other, but the second year they were together, Matt Ryan had one of the best years any quarterback has ever had in the NFL. Now this will actually be the third year that Jimmy Garoppolo is with Kyle Shanahan, but it'd be the second full year as a starter. So I think that even though they didn't get together in the offseason due to the pandemic, I think that Jimmy Garoppolo has a chance to really take his game to another level. So if he does, I think the 49ers will feel good about where they are in the future of the organization. If he plays at basically the same level, I think there will be a little bit of disappointment that he wasn't able to take it and grow on what he did last year. So it'll be very interesting to see how Jimmy Garoppolo is able to play this season and if he's able to take Kyle Shanahan's coaching to another level.
Talking about Garoppolo, do you think that there has ever been a possibility during this offseason that the 49ers not elsewhere? The rumor about Tom Brady.
Can you repeat that, please?
Okay. Speaking about Garoppolo, do you think that there has been a possibility that the 49ers had looked elsewhere for the quarterback position?
Yeah, they did look at Tom Brady. And, that's something where I know the 49ers had heard that Tom Brady wanted to play for the 49ers. And so when you're talking about Tom Brady, I think any team, if they felt like they had a chance to get Tom Brady, they would look into it. And so that's exactly what they did. And they kind of they talked about it. And I don't know if they talked about it more than just a day or two, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan in particular. And what they decided was, all things considered, what they've seen from Jimmy Garoppolo the past couple of years, where they think his game could go, combined with Tom Brady, what his age is, the fact that Brady would be learning a new system, they decided that the best thing for the organization, not only for the 2020 season but beyond, was to keep Jimmy Garoppolo and not pursue Tom Brady. So they looked at it and they just decided that, of all the options out there, most, specifically Tom Brady, the best thing for the organization was to keep going in the same direction they were going with Jimmy Garoppolo as a quarterback. And that's why when I look at, is this a big season for Jimmy Garoppolo? Of course it is, because this team is ready to win right now. But what's their plan B if Jimmy Garoppolo is not the guy? And, I would have told you a year ago that if all they'd have to do is wait 1 year and they could get Kirk Cousins. That's a quarterback that Kyle Shanahan really likes. But on the first day of the new league year, the Minnesota Vikings signed Kirk Cousins to a contract extension. So he's going nowhere. So what's plan B? I don't buy that they could just wait a year and get Aaron Rodgers, because part of the thinking in Green Bay is that Aaron Rodgers doesn't run Matt LaFleur's system the way Matt LaFleur wants him to run the system. Well, Matt LaFleur's system is Kyle Shanahan's system. And Kyle Shanahan is more tough and more strict on quarterbacks and more demanding of quarterbacks and more stubborn than Matt LaFleur is. So I don't buy this whole notion that if Jimmy Garoppolo struggles, the 49ers will go get Aaron Rodgers. I just don't buy it. I think he wants somebody, Kyle Shanahan meaning, that runs his system the way he wants it run. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo is the best bet to be that guy.
And talking about last season, which has been, in your opinion, the key from going from 4 and 12 to the Super Bowl?
Well, I think one of them was Jimmy Garoppolo. In 2018, he only started 3 games, and they were 1 and 2 in those games, and then the schedule got a little bit easier. In 2017, he started the last 5 games of the season. The 49ers won all 5 games, and they only won 6 that entire year. The other thing was the 49ers had a big flaw in 2018 when they were 4 and 12. Even if Garoppolo had stayed healthy, defensively they didn't have a pass rush. It just wasn't very good. And so even though Dee Ford did not play a whole lot, he was still an upgrade coming in. He wasn't healthy, but he still got 6.5 sacks in 11 games. But the big key was Nick Bosa. He was a game changer at left end, or defensive end, mostly rushing on the right side. But what he was able to do, not only getting 9 sacks, but just disrupting quarterbacks, probably a lot of Eric Armstead's success could be traced to Nick Bosa chasing the quarterback outside the pocket. So I think those 2 things in particular, and I know he's not your favorite, but Jimmy Ward staying healthy, that was a big deal too. There were just fewer defensive breakdowns throughout because Jimmy Ward didn't make a whole lot of interceptions. In fact, he didn't have any. But the 49ers gave up fewer big plays, fewer pass plays of 20 yards or more than any team in the league. So I think those are the things that kind of came together. And talking to Jed York after the season, or actually during Super Bowl week, he said that he felt like the team could end up at the Super Bowl the moment they got Nick Bosa. I don't know that that's entirely true. Maybe it is, but I do understand and I do believe that once they got Bosa, it was like, okay, now they have the guys, the pieces in place. And as far back as January of 2019, as you guys know, the Senior Bowl is basically, a college all-star game, and the worst teams in the league coach the Senior Bowl to in essence get a good look at some of the young players. And the 49ers, based on the 2018 season, coached the Senior Bowl in 2019. And so the Senior Bowl is held in Mobile, Alabama. The Super Bowl, the upcoming Super Bowl, is in Miami. And so the 49ers scouting department and coaching staff through that entire week, their little mantra was Mobile to Miami. And that kind of became their saying throughout the year, Mobile to Miami. So as far back as January, coming off a 4-win season, they at least felt like they had an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl if the pieces fell into place, and they did with Dee Ford, Nick Bosa, Jimmy Garoppolo staying healthy, Jimmy Ward staying healthy, Richard Sherman playing well. All those elements came together.
Considering our D-line for next season, do you think Armstead is going to play more inside at the defensive tackle position beside Kinlaw with Bosa and Ford at the ends? And
I would think so, because there are two elements to this. I think the 49ers want to manage how much Dee Ford plays until they know for sure that he can be healthy an entire year. He had some surgery on his tendonitis in his knee in the offseason, so they hope that he'll be ready. But also, I think there could be more of a rotation inside. I think DJ Jones is a really good nose tackle. He'll play a lot, but I think that without DeForest Buckner there, I think you might need Armstead to be more flexible. Now he plays, he played outside, he played inside, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But certainly with the inside guys being Kinlaw and DJ Jones, that's not bad. The outside guys being Ford and Bosa, that's not bad either. So I think that the one constant is, or the one kind of variable with all this, is that Armstead does have that flexibility to play both inside and outside. So I think they'll probably use a lot more of a rotation to have him play both spots, maybe on all downs. Maybe, last year he rushed the passer mostly from inside. This year he could do it inside or outside. I think it's more of a factor of him being kind of the wild card, and that he can play all up and down that line, and they'll just put him in wherever he's needed.
Matt, a couple of days ago, I heard Rich Eisen saying that 49ers had the best of season in the NFL. Do you agree with him?
Boy, it's tough to say that when they lose Emmanuel Sanders at wide receiver and they lose DeForest Buckner, and then Joe Staley retires. But they had a pretty good offseason. They had a really good offseason in the fact that they kept Armstead, paid him $4 million less a year. They got the number 13 overall pick for Buckner. They got Kinlaw, they got Ayuk. You're able to replace Joe Staley with Trent Williams. I don't know that it's the best offseason in the NFL, because I really haven't studied all the maneuverings of all the other teams in the league. But I think it's pretty difficult to come up with an area where the 49ers could have been better. Knowing the complexities, knowing the challenges that they faced this offseason, they did pretty well. I guess the only thing that could make it better is if they find a way to keep George Kittle on a long-term contract. But I would say that, if you had told me that the 49ers were going to trade away DeForest Buckner, I would not have agreed with that. I'm still not sure I agree with it, but when you look at how they made those moves fall into place, and we talked about it earlier, right? How it took a little bit of luck. You know, they didn't know that Javon Kinlaw was going to be there when they traded DeForest Buckner. But the way things fell into place, it makes absolutely perfect sense what their plan was, why that was their plan, and then most importantly, their ability or the luck involved in executing that plan.
Matt, how do you like the chances for the 49ers to get back to the Super Bowl and maybe bringing it back home? And what do you think they need in order to succeed?
Yeah, I think that they're in really good position. Yeah, I think that when you enter this season, there aren't very many teams that have better rosters than the 49ers. And, you know, the motivation to get back. You know, here we talk about the Super Bowl hangover. You know, teams that lose the Super Bowl generally don't fare as well the next year. I think the 49ers are set up pretty well. What's it going to take? It's going to take remaining, you know, injury-free, or at least, you know, to a degree. They can't lose Jimmy Garoppolo. They can't lose George Kittle. You know, several players on defense. You know, they have to be able to stay healthy. And then ultimately, I mean, I guarantee you they would love to be back in the position they were last season, where they had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. And it's a matter of finishing the job. And, you know, there's really, when you look at this season for the 49ers, there's not much room for improvement. You know, it takes a lot to get to the Super Bowl. And once you get there, I mean, the road to get there is so tough. And then it's a coin flip, you know, whether you can win that game or not. So it's so tough, but I would say they have to feel pretty good about where they are as the season begins. And a lot of times the team that you start with in September doesn't look necessarily like the team you become in November, December, and if you're lucky enough to qualify for the playoffs in January. So it's almost impossible to kind of say where you think the season will go. But as we sit here right now and talk about how the 49ers have set themselves up for the 2020 season, I think they're in pretty good shape to be Super Bowl contenders
Matt, I really love Kyle Shanahan. I always call him a genius. I was just wondering if in order for his schemes to completely succeed, if he needs a superior talent on his roster. Like you were saying earlier, a big name wide receiver like DeAndre Hopkins or Julio Jones that he had in Atlanta.
You know, I don't think so. And the reason I say it is because, I mean, it's such a thin line, right, between winning and losing. And I mean, he had the players. They had the players last year to win it all. There's no question about it. And they had a, you know, as I mentioned, they had a 10-point lead in the middle of the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. Well, you can't tell me that you can get to that point and not have the guys, you know, to win. They just, you know, there were a lot of things that went wrong in the final 6 or 7 minutes of that game that wasn't all about having a big-time wide receiver. So, you know, the New England Patriots won a lot of Super Bowls without any big-name wide receiver. You know, the best wide receiver they had during that time was Randy Moss, and they didn't win a Super Bowl with him. You know, they've had guys like Wes Welker and Julian Edelman. Well, Wes Welker never won a Super Bowl either, but you know, they've had some good players. They've had a good tight end like Gronkowski. To me, Kittle is the 49ers Gronkowski. So I think that they have, you know, by and large, they have the players they need. I think that this year they have more of those players. In talking to Kyle last year, throughout the season, he never really felt like their offense was just a machine that could not be stopped. They had guys for specific roles. Some of those guys that they had for those roles were injured. So I think that he feels like better about this roster right now than he felt about the roster a year ago at this time. So I think the pieces are definitely in place for the 49ers to win a championship. Now it's just a matter of putting it all together out there on the field.
And what's your take on giving Kyle Shanahan the huge contract extension? Do you think it represents the final decisive breaking point compared to the previous management?
Yeah, no, I think what happened with them, when Kyle Shanahan took that job in 2017, he wasn't highly paid, as a first-year head coach. And what's happened is that, some other coaches around the league have gotten contract extensions and gotten more money. There are coaches hired after him, who made more money. And so basically what this was taking a guy who's considered one of the best coaches in the league, but yet his pay was near the bottom, and making it so that he's now among the highest paid coaches. So I know there's a lot of questions about why John Lynch wasn't given a contract extension at the same time, seeing that they both came in with 6-year contracts. Well, John Lynch is still making among the top among NFL general managers. So this was more a situation of paying Kyle Shanahan a fair amount. The coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, Zach Taylor, was making more than Kyle Shanahan. So this was an issue where he was grossly underpaid, and the 49ers are now paying him like one of the top coaches in the league, one of the top coaches that he is.
So it's a kind of a reward.
Yeah.
It's recognizing his talent.
Absolutely. And there really wasn't a point to give John Lynch a contract extension, because there are some top general managers in the league right now whose deals are going to be up in this coming year. And so once those guys get more money and the market resets, then the next contract that John Lynch has would be greater. But there really wasn't a reason to give him, the pay raise they would have given him would have been pretty small. And I think it made more sense for John Lynch to kind of see if 49ers can win a championship. We'll see how John Schneider for Seattle and Mickey Loomis from the New Orleans Saints, if they get big pay raises, then the next time John Lynch, the 49ers talk to John Lynch about a new contract, then that market will be higher and it would make more of an impact than if he had signed a contract this offseason.
Matt, talking about the ownership, Jed York in 2017 said that 49ers needed to reestablish a championship culture. What's the main aspect of the new policy under the current management?
Well, I think there are a lot of things you can look at. I think it was getting the right people in the organization. 49ers have done a very good job about the people they bring in, people who are passionate about football, who get along with others, who work hard. And so, even when they were bad in 2017 and 2018, the locker room was always pretty good as far as the work ethic, how they approached their jobs. They were building for something, and now it's a matter of keeping that together and, replacing, good players, guys who've been productive with other good players who come in and share that same mindset. So the one thing that I can tell you is being around this team through the recent bad years was that the head coach and the general manager, it seemed like, were always pulling in different directions. They didn't like each other, or they wanted to either take the credit from the other guy or push the blame to the other guy, whether the team was winning or losing, of course. Now it really appears as if everybody's pulling in the same direction, and everybody has each other's backs. They have a saying here. They wear T-shirts around. They talk about the letters IGYB. I got your back. And so that's what that's kind of what they're trying to foster in that organization is, through good times, through bad times, you're not by yourself. We'll share in the successes and we'll share in the blame too. And so everybody has each other's backs, which is something that really had disappeared from this organization before John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan came aboard.
And do you think, Matt, that Jed York has changed his approach to the team and to the way of being the CEO of this team after the personal battles that ended the Harbaugh era?
I don't know that he's changed his approach as much as he now has people in there that he doesn't have to worry about with as far as personality conflicts. I think he has to do a lot less babysitting, to be honest with you. He doesn't have to worry about, Trent Baalke and Jim Harbaugh and how they're getting along. And that's not part of his job now to massage personalities and egos and make sure that no feelings are hurt. He can just do his thing, which is kind of oversee the organization and let John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan take care of all the football decisions. So that's the big thing for him, is that now he has two people in place, two adults who can talk through their differences without it becoming a big issue.
Matt, something more strict actuality about the pandemic. The California governor has said that it will be difficult to organize any sports event until November. Do you think that the NFL will be able to maintain their actual schedule?
I don't know. And I mean, that's the big question. And I think, right now in the United States, our government, our federal government has not done a very good job managing the pandemic, and all the leadership from our country has come from local governments. In California, it's the counties and the governor, and so we just don't know where things are going, and the numbers now are spiking. And I know that things were horrible in Italy, and now the numbers look very good. Because in your country, you're proactive and you took this head on. And in the United States, there's a divide, and 40% of the people don't believe you should wear masks, which is just crazy. So it's those people who are putting sports at risk in the United States. We don't know where it's going, and the NFL would like to stay on track and have football. They're going to be canceling at least 2 of the preseason games, but I think we'll see, because Major League Baseball and the National Basketball Association will be trying to get their seasons going before the NFL. And so we'll probably have a better idea of where this is going. And as new information becomes available, when we see where the numbers are going, we'll probably have a better idea for football. But it's very difficult at this point to think that any fans would be in the stands. I think that's a given. I just can't see where you could bring in thousands of fans to watch a sporting event. But with 60 players, with 20 coaches, with that many numbers of people coming together, it's far more complicated than I can even think about. And yes, you can have all the plans in the world of, hey, this is the date we want to report for training camp. This is the date for our first game. But one serious illness that comes out of this, and I don't know where it goes from there. So I'm just kind of taking it like everybody else, just one day at a time. And the NFL, I don't think they really have any idea what's going to end up happening. I guess everything, all like in the case of the 49ers, coaches, players, the team, and I think every team around the league, you prepare like, you get in the mindset that the games are going to happen. Then people above you, the National Football League or the local governments will determine whether the games actually happen. And at this point, I'm like everybody else. I have no idea what it's going to look like.
So, Matt, it's difficult to say even if COVID-19 will change something in training camp organization for the Niners.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, the plan is, the NFL wants training camps to open in late July 28th. Whether it gets to that point is anybody's guess. But as of now, it's kind of been this approach of let's just try to keep it on schedule as much as possible until somebody says, no, that doesn't make sense. And, they've already, like I said, they've canceled some of the preseason games already. And whether they can actually play a full season or any part of a season, I have no idea.
Yes. Now, my next question was about, it will be about if we can expect a full season, but you have already answered. Godel is always so proud to make the NFL something on what the Americans can count, a sort of symbol also against the pandemic, something that don't stop. We saw that on the draft day. We saw that in many occasions. So, as sport fan, we are going to we hope that all is going to be better also in the United States, and the season can start at the date established.
Yeah, that's what everybody's hoping for. I mean, everybody would love to see not only the football season, but every sports season to happen. But everybody wants it to happen in a smart way. And that's, that's where we trust the experts, the scientists, the people who are in charge of making those decisions. We trust that they are making the right decisions for all involved. And, it would be horrible if they started the season only to see things happen that force them to stop the season. I just don't know how much sense it makes to really start it unless you have, you have to have a plan in place of what, how they're going to react to certain things, multiple players testing positive, multiple coaches testing positive. That's going to happen. So what's their plan? And we don't know that yet. And, you just hate to think of what the worst case scenarios would be, and just hope it doesn't get to that point. So I just don't know. Frankly, 3 weeks ago, I thought, maybe this is going to happen. I just kind of seem to think, as we're talking here now, every day I become less optimistic because what I see, what everybody sees, is the United States has let this pandemic get completely out of control. And now the numbers are spiking more than they have early on, when the NBA season was shut down, when Major League Baseball was shut down. So I just don't see how they can bring sports back when it's at its absolute peak. Well, we hope it's at its absolute peak. We hope it goes down, but there's no indication that it's going down.
Matt, a couple of personal questions, if we can. How as your work has been changed and impacted by the pandemic in covering the 49ers?
You know, well, that's kind of the crazy thing right now is things really haven't changed for me. I mean, I'm still writing at NBCSportsBayArea.com daily. I'm getting ready to take some time off, but, you know, we covered free agency, the draft. They just didn't have the on-field workouts in the off season, but I'm still covering the team and writing as much as I can. People are still interested. Late July, when the team would be starting training camp, that's when, you know, my job will really be impacted. But up to this point, it hasn't been impacted very much because so much of the NFL calendar has continued on as it normally does in an off season.
And another personal question. I remember when you left the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, Phil Barber actually called you the Carl Ripken of beat reporters. What can you tell us about your relationship with your colleagues? Is there a code? Are there any unwritten rules that you follow?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's, I'm in a great situation as far as most of the people or all the people that I work with. I have really good relationships with. I mean, I think sometimes I feel like I see those people more than I see my own family, you know, when we're traveling or at the 49ers practice facility. And so there's always been, you know, this great deal of respect and admiration that mutually that we have for each other. And so it's a lot of fun. Even people who don't work, you know, at your spot, you know, if you're covering with other, you know, organizations, you get to know those people and you get to know people around the country as well who are in your jobs because, you know, as you guys know, whatever line of work you're in, you know more about what other people in your field go through. And so there's that kind of kinship you have there. But the San Francisco Bay Area is a terrific place to live and work because of the people that I've gotten to know through the years. And so it's fun just to keep those relationships going. And, you know, we can joke with each other. We can have a great deal of fun, and we certainly do.
If you need to assign assistance, we are ready.
Okay.
We are ready. We are so ready.
Okay, I will keep you in mind. Thank you.
Matt, we are going to close this interview. We have finished. I really don't have words to explain and to thank you for the professionalism, for the patience you show with us today, answering all our questions. So thank you.
Well, let me ask you, where are you guys based right now? Where are you living?
We live in 3 different places in Italy. I live in Pisa, the city of the Leaning Tower, the famous Leaning Tower,
sure.
Toscan. Gianluigi.
I live in Naples, in southern Italy.
That's a coastal town, right?
Yes, it's on the sea.
Yeah.
And Enzo.
Matt Maiocco was in Naples, I think, just before the start of last season. You can ask him for a review, but you should come.
Yes. And Enzo?
Enzo,
you listen to me?
Yeah.
I live in Maranello, the Ferrari's place, Ferrari City.
So
in the north.
Okay, so I've been to Italy a couple of times. I have relatives in this little town in Pavia.
Pavia, close to Milano.
Yes, Valverde is a little town that I've been to, Valverde and Pavia. And then they also I've been to Milan, same relatives have an apartment there that I've spent a little bit of time in, but I've spent time in, I've never been to Venice. I've been to Rome, Florence, Siena. I have been to Pisa. And I believe both of my grandparents came over in the 1920s out of Naples and on a ship to New York. So I am familiar with that area, and I absolutely love it. And next time I come over, I'll look you guys up.
Sure, Matt. You can count on us for everything. We don't have relatives in San Francisco, but we came a couple of times, and it was amazing.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Well, hey, I want to thank you so much for having me on. I love talking 49ers football, and this was certainly my pleasure. So thank you very much for reaching out and having me on your show.
Thank you to you.
Thank you, Matt. Matt, can we just ask you to say hello to our listeners? I know you can speak just a bit of Italian.
No, actually, I can't. I can, but then once I come back and I don't talk for several years, I lose it all. So what do you want me to say?
Just say hello to Italian red and gold.
Italian red and gold.
Yes.
Okay. So should I say ciao?
Yes.
Yeah, very good.
Enough,
It's enough, Matt. It's
Okay.
enough. Thank you so much, Matt.
Okay. So you want me to say?
Yes. Go.
Okay. Hi, this is Matt Maiocco from NBC Sports Bay Area. Just wanted to say ciao to my good friends at Italian Red and Gold.
Thank you so much.
Matt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Ciao.